The town of Ashridge had once been a thriving outpost, a quiet corner of colonial America nestled along the Delaware River. But by 1777, the shadow of the Revolutionary War loomed heavy over its cobblestone streets. The British had occupied the area for months, their red coats and ruthless tactics choking the spirit of the townsfolk. Fear and desperation lingered in the air, like smoke from the burning homes of rebels. Eliza Hartley, a 20-year-old daughter of a silversmith, stood in the town square, clutching a satchel close to her chest. She scanned the crowd, her heart pounding as she tried to look inconspicuous. Her father had been imprisoned by the British weeks earlier, accused of crafting weapons for the Continental Army. Since then, Eliza had joined the local resistance, running messages and smuggling supplies to the Patriot forces hiding in the surrounding woods. Today's mission was different. It wasn't just a message she carried, but a map, detailing British troop movements and supply routes. If it fell into the wrong hands, it would mean disaster not only for the Patriots, but for her family as well. Eliza wove through the market stalls, her eyes darting to the soldiers patrolling the square. She felt the weight of the satchel, as if the map inside burned with urgency. Her contact, a farmer named Samuel, was supposed to meet her near the bakery. As she approached the bakery, a sharp whistle pierced the air. She turned to see a soldier, a young redcoat with piercing blue eyes, staring directly at her. "You there, miss?" he barked, pointing. Eliza froze. The crowd seemed to fade, leaving only the pounding of her heart in the soldier's accusing gaze. "Stop her!" he shouted, advancing. She ran. Eliza darted between stalls, the shouts of soldiers echoing behind her. The satchel thudded against her side as she pushed through startled townsfolk. A shot rang out, striking a crate of apples near her. The crowd scattered, and she used the chaos to slip into a narrow alleyway. Breathless, Eliza ducked into the cellar of an abandoned tavern at the edge of town. It was dark and damp, the air thick with the scent of mildew and fear. She lit a small lantern, revealing Samuel and two other members of the resistance. "You were followed?" Samuel asked, his voice low but urgent. "Almost," Eliza replied, handing him the satchel. "The map is here. Get it to General Washington." Samuel nodded, his face grim. "They're tightening their grip. We'll need a diversion to draw them off your trail." Eliza hesitated. "What kind of diversion?" Samuel met her eyes. "The kind that might get you killed." That night, Eliza and two other rebels crept to a British supply depot near the river. The plan was simple. Set the depot ablaze, creating enough chaos to allow Samuel and the map to slip out of town unnoticed. The moon was high, its light reflecting off the water as Eliza crouched behind a stack of barrels. She clutched a flint and steel in her trembling hands, her breath visible in the cold night air. "Are you ready?" whispered James, the blacksmith's apprentice, who carried a torch soaked in oil. Eliza nodded. "Do it." James lit the torch, its flame dancing in the darkness. With swift movements, they doused the barrels in oil and set them alight. The fire roared to life, casting an orange glow that illuminated the terrified faces of the rebels. "Move!" James shouted as British soldiers shouted in the distance. Eliza sprinted through the shadows, the sound of boots and barking dogs growing louder. She glanced back to see James stumble, his leg caught in a trap. "Go!" he yelled, waving her away. But Eliza hesitated. She couldn't leave him. Eliza ran back to James, her hands fumbling with the metal jaws of the trap. The firelight flickered across his pale face as she freed his leg, slinging his arm over her shoulders. "Come on," she urged, dragging him toward the riverbank. Before they could reach the safety of the woods, a group of redcoats emerged, their muskets aimed. "Drop him!" the leader commanded, his voice cold. Eliza froze, her heart sinking. James tried to stand, wincing in pain. "Run," he whispered to her. She didn't move. Instead, she squared her shoulders and stared defiantly at the soldiers. "I'm not leaving him," she said. Eliza and James were thrown into a makeshift prison, a cold, damp cellar beneath the British garrison. The soldiers sneered as they locked the door, leaving the two rebels in darkness. "We failed," James muttered, leaning against the wall, his face pale and drawn. "No," Eliza said, her voice firm despite the fear gnawing at her. "Samuel got away with the map. That's what matters." She clenched her fists, trying to summon courage. "We just have to hold on. The Patriots will come for us." James gave her a faint smile. "You're braver than most men I know." Days passed and the British interrogated them relentlessly. Eliza refused to break, her silence infuriating the officers. One night, as the guards grew lax, Eliza noticed a loose brick in the wall of their cell. She and James worked quietly, prying it free to reveal a narrow tunnel that led to the river. "This might be our only chance," she whispered. Using scraps of cloth and determination, they crawled through the damp tunnel, emerging near the riverbank under the cover of darkness. The cold water numbed their bodies as they swam to the far shore, where friendly faces awaited them. Eliza and James rejoined the resistance, their escape a symbol of hope for the battered town. With Samuel's map reaching Washington, the Patriots launched a surprise attack, driving the British out of Ashridge. Eliza stood on the hill overlooking the battlefield, the echoes of musket fire fading into the distance. She felt the weight of her father's silver pendant around her neck, a reminder of why she fought. "This isn't over," she said to James, who stood beside her with a crutch. "No," he agreed, "but it's a start." As the sun rose over the Delaware, its light reflecting off the river, Eliza felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fight for freedom was far from over, but she knew resilience was the key to victory, and as long as she could stand, she would keep fighting.